All right, team, welcome back to After Hours. We're going to have a banger show, so you're going to want to stay until the end. Matt, we had some banger shows last week. We had great feedback from the team here. Do you have anything to say for the team? Because I was talking with you, and it was just like a very pleasant response. We especially saw on Thursday's show where we discussed Prove AI on Hedera and the background of association and all the little intricacies regarding Casper. Do you have anything to say for the team here? I thought we got a pretty pleasant response last week.
Yeah, thank you guys for showing out. Sincerely, thank you guys for liking the video, come to check out what we had to say. And I, like you said, Gavin, there's been obviously mixed comments. There's going to be people who want to deflect and blame us for some of their investing choices, but there's also an overwhelming number of you guys out there that showed a lot of love and support for the content we bring you guys, for the education, and also just being able to take some responsibility in making some choices regarding your own investing. So I'm glad to provide it for you guys. We're going to keep providing it for you guys, and I love doing this YouTube stuff. I wish that we started doing it a lot earlier, because this is one of my favorite parts of the community, is chatting with you guys, giving you guys the content you're looking for, and hopefully making you guys a tiny bit wiser when it comes to crypto and investing.
Last thing we should probably talk about here, and this should come to no surprise of you guys here, especially if you are following us on X, but we got in contact with the CTO at the Casper Association, Michael Stoyer, and if you've been following us, we have been covering some of his actions as he is a part of the interim board at the association. And he has a big, long history with Casper here, even at Labs, one of the founding members, a co-founder. And we are going to be talking to him this Wednesday, so the After Hours show should come out on Halloween this Thursday. So we're going to be shooting for Halloween 7 p.m. on Thursday, so expect to hear us then. So let your kids go out and trick or treat or whatever, but you're going to be locked in the house watching After Hours, getting a little special edition show. We usually do special edition shows, but a special edition Halloween show with a little interview. The first time it's been done on our YouTube channel. So we're going to make sure it's a great one. You're going to want to show out. And regarding this interview, I'm asking for you guys to leave your questions down below. But there are some things we probably don't want to talk about with him, right? Like maybe this Prove AI stuff. We want to be forward looking, right, Matt? So what should people comment down below? What questions should they be asking?
Yeah, so what we're going to be focusing on primarily in this interview, and if you guys want your question to be potentially, selected for the show here, is going to be about the existing team at Casper Association, the state of the network now, the technology itself, and kind of what the expectations are for Casper moving forward. So if you guys have questions that kind of fall into those categories, or maybe about Michael's background, those are things that we will consider selecting, but we're not going to be talking about other influencers or other people or price predictions or any of that stuff. So please, guys, try to keep your suggested questions to those topics, and then you have a higher chance of getting selected for that question to be on the show.
Yes, team, I know we get, very entertaining here sometimes, but on Thursday, we're going to be all focused, no games, all about the tech, all about the future of Casper. This Halloween, 7 p.m. You're going to want to stay tuned for that and drop your question down below, and we'll select one. We already did some conversations here, and we already got an idea of how we're going to approach it. But if you want your question brought up on the show on this Halloween, drop it in the comment section down below, and we might select it. But Maddie, today we're going to be talking about some Hedera news. Allegedly, this company is wanting to do their product, their AI governance tool on the Hedera network. And so we're going to get into that. I've never heard of this before. We're also going to talk about Bitcoin predictions. A special person went on Squawk Box this morning, and so we're going to talk about that. We're also going to discuss the three main factors most helpful to Bitcoin's next move higher. And at the end, Maddie's going to give a technical analysis of Bitcoin and HBAR. So you're going to stay until the end. Before we hop into the topics here for today, team, become a CryptoCharged. Remember, click the pin link in the comment section down below. Use code YouTube and sign up there, and you'll have access to our daily shows, our tools on the website, our Discord community, all over there, so you can stay informed every single day. And if you've been a part of this Casper meltdown within the last week, it's only been a week now since last Monday when Casper Labs rebranded to Prove AI. We've been covering it all in the Discord team, so if you don't want to be left in the dark, we try to give you all the info we can on Twitter and on YouTube, but obviously we can't. We just can't. We have a platform for that. So sign up on YouTube. Don't sign up on YouTube. You are a subscriber here, obviously, but
yeah, subscribe here. That's okay. We'll let you subscribe.
Become a member. Use code YouTube. Maddie, let's get into the topics today, and we'll leave some of the technical stuff for the end. Let's start out here with Prove AI. I know we talked about it in depth last week, but just to kind of round it out, because we are HBAR token holders, and so we do have a stake in the Hedera network. So let's talk about it from that perspective at least. Prove AI moves to Hedera, revolutionizing AI governance with blockchain. Prove AI has chosen Hedera as its exclusive platform for building its AI governance product, focusing on secure, scalable solutions to meet enterprise demands and regulatory compliance. This partnership leverages Hedera's tamper-proof infrastructure to enable Prove AI to offer robust governance features like multi-party access control, automated compliance tools, and immutable data storage, critical for regulated industries such as healthcare and finance. This sound familiar to you guys at all? I've never heard any of these topics before. It's not like this was going to be happening on another network before. And obviously, there's some lore here, team. If you're new here, Prove AI departed from another network that we care deeply about. When asked about Prove AI moving to Hedera, very important here, team, due to the Casper performance. So Michael Stoyer was asked, did Prove AI leave the Casper network due to the performance of the Casper network? Did they go to Hedera for this reason? And Michael Stoyer, the CTO at Association, said, no, this is not true. The motivation was exclusively commercially driven. Hedera made them a business proposal they could not pass up. Maddie, the question here, does this make you more or less bullish for the Hedera network, knowing what we know now?
I mean, anytime you get additional applications being built, additional devs that are going to be joining the building of anything on a network is a net positive thing. I'm a personally Hedera holder. I hold HBAR myself. I've held this position for several years. I know that you hold a little bit of HBAR as well, Gav. So by de facto, I did kind of still come up on a little bit of a win here, being an existing HBAR holder. So, I think that, again, what comes down for me is the value of what I see in the network itself and consensus models behind it. The Hashgraph model is a very, very good model, and it has incredibly high TPS, transactions per second. The throughput's incredibly high. So we're able to get a lot more done in a faster period of time for a very, very small price. So, I don't think it's a bad network to build on. In fact, I would probably be more upset if they went to go build on Ethereum or something that's very expensive and very slow. So I don't think it's a horrible migration. Now, of course, there's definitely a lot of, soreness out there in the community, and maybe they don't want to hear that we're talking positively about this being positive for HBAR. But again, at the end of the day, I selected HBAR as part of my portfolio well before I knew any of these applications were being built, because I understand the tech and understand the network, and that's what I'm investing in. So, is it bullish for HBAR? Yeah, it absolutely is. Does it make me exponentially more bullish on HBAR? Not really. I'm probably just about as bullish on HBAR as I am now as I was 2 years ago when I was starting to really build a bigger HBAR position.
Let's talk about, I feel like we just, talked about it way too much last week. So let's talk about some other things here before we run out of time here, because we were just running out of time left and right last week. What are the three main reasons that are most helpful to Bitcoin's next move higher? I wrote that, but this was in context to Matthew Siegel. He is VanEck's head of digital assets research, and he joined Squawk Box this morning on CNBC, and I listened to it, and he had some interesting takes just about how Trump's pro-Bitcoin, pro-crypto, making those little distinctions there. And I was like, okay, is a Bitcoin maxi coming? What does he have to say? Because usually that's what Bitcoin maxis do. They take them apart and they're like, oh, pro-Bitcoin, but also pro-crypto. And he also made some other arguments just about the things we should be paying attention to, things that are correlated to Bitcoin that we should be paying attention to. But he discussed Bitcoin's role as a global asset is expanding, with countries like BRICS, such as Russia, Argentina, using government resources for Bitcoin mining, and he said, which could lead to a broader use of Bitcoin in international trade as a hedge against U.S. fiscal policies. He also discussed the long term. This is kind of what we care about here. Listening to some of these, higher ups at VanEck, or whether it's, Kathy Wood's ARK Invest, or kind of their forecasting, their modeling about where they see Bitcoin going, large-term forecasts suggest Bitcoin could eventually become a reserve asset. Okay, so what reserve assets have we seen before? Gold, etc., in the last 200 years. And so now we're looking at this in terms of Bitcoin, Maddie. So I want to hear your thoughts on this, but potentially reaching valuations in the hundreds of thousands or even millions if adopted by global central banks for trade and settlement. And the kind of things he talked about, Matt, was like in Russia, where they are very pro Bitcoin mining. You got Russia money being thrown at Bitcoin mining out there, and in Argentina. So when you look at some of these BRICS nations looking to utilize Bitcoin, looking to utilize the Bitcoin network here. But the last thing I want to discuss here, and then throw it to you for just kind of mapping out what kind of person he is. So he didn't sound quite Bitcoin maxi. I was listening for the words there of where does he stand on that point? So he sounded more in favor of altcoins and etc. But the three things he talked about, he didn't say this explicitly, but he said, I wrote down 3 things that are helpful to Bitcoin in the short term. And then he listed these things off. So he didn't say that before, but it was kind of implied. He talked about money growth has accelerated with the Fed pivot, selling exhaustion from Mt. Gox and Germany selling those illicit Bitcoin they had, selling it onto the market. And then the election, he explicitly said the election is helping, and he pointed to 2020 where he saw low volume, and then after the election, from his eyes, a pickup in Bitcoin. And so, Maddie, what factors could you be seeing in the short term now, not the long term, but the short term, to sort of help Bitcoin's price?
Right. So I would say I agree with some of those points as to, what can accelerate Bitcoin's growth, especially when it comes to the Fed pivot. When you're less restrictive with monetary policy, that generally is good for risk on assets. Now, we haven't gotten into this full-fledged, cutting like a madman, putting mortgage-backed securities back on the balance sheet in troves. So I wouldn't say we've, done this harsh pivot into quantitative easing yet, but we're definitely in the first stages of that. So I agree with that. The one point that I probably disagree with there is he's pointing to the election cycle of last year. And of course, election seasons definitely can affect the markets, and we obviously have different circumstances this time around, especially with some of the international conflict we have right now. But when you look at what actually caused the markets to rip, is you had obviously the markets crash really, really hard because COVID, the entire economy shuts down, global economies are shutting down, and some of them restarted sooner than later. But you had the Fed do some very interesting things during that time. So interest rates basically at zero, right? And then you also had the money printer just all the way on, right? Everyone's getting stimulus checks, the money printer's on. We printed more money during that period from 2020 through 2021 than we did for years and years and years in prior years because of that. So what you actually had was this massive injection of liquidity based on the actions of the Federal Reserve that affected the markets more than the 2020 election, in my opinion. But again, there's always going to be speculative points there. But as far as what can affect Bitcoin in the short term, I think that price action is just speaking for itself. Right now, we have Bitcoin in a beautiful structure. We broke this flag structure. We back tested the flag structure. We've shown that there's a lot of resilience in a lot of these buy pockets. As we start to defend the lower bound of the range, and then we defended the pivot zone in the middle of the range, and now we've started to see a lot of resilience there. We can also look at some of the other factors like talked about there, where you have a higher level of institutional investment and maybe other people who weren't previously invested because of all the ETF availability now. So people can quickly and easily add Bitcoin to their regular traditional portfolios along their S&P 500 exposure and their Microsoft exposure. They can easily have Bitcoin exposure there as well. So I think there's a lot of small factors that can potentially contribute to Bitcoin moving higher in the short term. But for me, at the end of the day, it all comes down to the chart, and the chart looks absolutely prime. It is frothing at the mouth to break into a new all-time high, and there's really nothing at this point that would make me bearish on Bitcoin. Even when we look at the most recent issue that we had with Israel retaliating with missiles, you saw the markets come down, you saw altcoins get really hurt, but you actually saw Bitcoin be quite resilient, right? You actually had a very short-lived push to the downside, and we saw resilience to the upside. So when I look at some of those factors mixed with some of the other macro factors that we talked about, as well as the charts, it does look very bullish for Bitcoin, and a breakout looks quite imminent.
That was funny, Maddie, because I got a notification on my phone right when it happened. I went directly to Discord. I was like, here it comes, get ready. And then I threw the Israel flag.
Oh my gosh, it hurts.
And sure enough, man, I mean, we were seeing crazy market reactions. I mean, we were seeing Casper. I mean, Casper's eyeing half a penny right now. Like, who would have
Right.
thought? Who would have thought, Maddie? Months ago, probably almost a year now, you were salivating for under a penny Casper, to
Sub
get
penny,
that.
yeah.
And now
And
look
here
at
we
where we
are.
are. But just interesting enough, in the last question for this, because I think it would be interesting in the greater context, is this guy Michael on CNBC this morning was just talking about other countries like Russia and Argentina, how they're using Bitcoin as a treasury asset, but we have not seen that here in America. Are we falling behind? Or maybe I should, recontextualize this. So forever we have seen new monetary systems come into play. And now we are on a fiat system. And to look kind of into the future, one would only consider that we're going to have CBDCs, we're going to have stable coins, crypto likely to be in the mix. Are we falling behind as Americans comparatively to the rest of the world?
Oh, absolutely. And, we can point fingers. We can blame a lot of people for this. We can blame the regulatory bodies like the SEC for their, enforcement actions and not giving guidance. We can blame Congress for dragging their feet on bipartisan framework that could really help us give clarity to exchanges, retail investors, basically everyone participating in this market. And then you look around what's happening in other parts of the world, and you look over in Japan with, their stablecoin regulation, and MiCA over in the European unions. You have, whether I agree with all of it or not, something that you can look to and say, this is how it's done, right? This is how we treat stablecoins. This is how we treat exchanges. This is how we treat custodians. This is the difference between self-custody and the fiduciary responsibility of a custodian like a Coinbase or a Binance. Those are things that help market participants. So I definitely think we're falling behind in that aspect. We're also seeing smaller economies and in smaller regions like Bhutan, as well as some other smaller islands, move to a stablecoin economy because, first of all, they're just in a more apt place to do so because they already have a small economy, so a lot less red tape to stumble through in order to get there. But the longer that the U.S. tries to have this very vague and kind of lackadaisical approach to regulation, we're going to continue to see a lot of the innovation go overseas into other regions where they have crystal clear clarity in relation to how they're allowed to develop projects, tokens, custody, all these different things. So yeah, US is falling behind, and we will continue to not be a superpower in the world as long as we continue to confuse participants.
I love that breakdown there, Maddie. Okay, we're not wasting any time here. I want some Bitcoin chart. I want some BTC charting. I want some HBAR charting. Maddie, take us away here.
Sure. So let's take a quick look at the charts here, team. I'm not going to go through the whole Bitcoin story with you guys. And as far as previous price action, we're going to focus on the most recent consolidation because that's kind of the price action that we focus on the most here. If you guys are interested in those price studies, about once a week, we'll probably go through some decent price studies of some larger assets that have a lot of price history. So if that's the kind of stuff you guys are wanting to get into, check us out at CryptoCharged. But I'm going to go over some stuff that maybe you guys have seen before, maybe you haven't. But when we look at first the structure here, this is a classic flagging structure. So you got a clean top, and then we also got a pretty good bottom here as well. Now, of course, I'm going to cut through the candles, and you're going to have peers out there like, you're cutting through these wicks. It doesn't matter, guys. What we're looking for is the most amount of contention that we have within an actual line. MA's moving averages work kind of similarly. But nonetheless, you have a structure here that suggests continuation, especially when it comes from an uptrend like this. When you get this kind of corrective structure, it generally will suggest that more bullishness will continue when the correction does finish. So you have a clean flag structure here. You guys can see that our last test here was September 28th, had a little pullback into the MAs here, kind of dropped just below the 50-day and the 100-day. So these are our short-term momentum indicators. Little deviation below, but then you see a nice engulfment. And then you saw here on October 14th, nice follow through. We get a break of the flag structure. So again, flag structure is not the end all be all for me, but it definitely, especially when you have, from March all the way through October, this kind of consolidation structure and a clean breakout with conviction, and then also a back test. So you guys can see that you had the breakout and then the back test and then an impulse higher here. That's very nice. Now, there's other context clues to suggest that this structure is very strong and something that we should respect. So you have the low in here that was respected. So here on July 4, a big wick over here. We did wick below, but closed candle bodies above August 5. And then again, one more wick here, September 7. So we started to show that that level was an important level that had strong support and a big buy demand. Then you look at the next level up here. So 56.8, big pop here on May 2. Again, here on July 9, you had a lot of contention August 15. You recover here on September 10. Then we get to the pivot zone. So in the middle of the kind of range that we've identified here, right around $60,800. Look at all the contention we've had in here. We start to recover above all these levels. Now we've gotten to the top of the range and we're starting to show that those levels are turning into support levels. So as we start to see the flips here, and again, this is really the key here. It's not just so much, oh, we broke over this level. It's the breakout backtest behavior that gives me more confidence in the structure. In fact, if you guys are part of our membership, you guys will know that when I don't see a backtest, I actually become less bullish. You are taking a probability out of our favor, and you are technically creating a less bullish structure by not backtesting that zone. We have done such a good job since this breakout here from September forward of backtesting all the key levels we developed from March forward here. So now that we're kind of at the top of the range, right? Like what's next? There's really not a lot holding us back. The big tops in here, right around 70,900, 71,000. That's really all that's holding it back. Last thing we're going to bring into our analysis here is the Fibonacci range. So we're going to go swing high, swing low. Boom, swing high, swing low. So the high of the session over here right around 73,800. The low of the session right around 49K. And you guys can see that we are poking over the 786. You guys can see that we've also utilized a lot of these fibs here as support zones. So you recovered back over the 236, then you tested the 382, we tested the 50. Now we're breaking and testing the 702 here. So we're pretty much primed to go. Everything points here to rounded bottoms, a cumulative structure. So $89,000 or so is a very reasonable next leg up. Now, does that happen all in one day? Does that happen by November 7th? No, I'm not going to promise you any of that bullshit, guys. But when you look at the structure here, all the clues point to a very, very bullish picture. The flipping of the MAs, the flipping of support zones, climbing and doing backtesting all the way up, and now resting on top of some key Fibonacci levels. Bitcoin looks incredibly bullish to me.
Maddie, Trump's going to win, and then Bitcoin's going to go skyrocketing. I think you missed the memo on that. Can you give us a quick look at the HBAR chart really quick? We just hit 20 minutes right now. Maybe just a quick look.
Sure. So again, guys, one thing I want you guys to take a quick peek at here is this huge surge that we've had in Bitcoin dominance. Today, we're up almost 0.9 of a point, almost 1% in dominance. When you have these huge upticks in Bitcoin dominance, altcoins generally don't like that. So you have a lot of alts right now that are getting pretty hurt out there today because of this big surge in dominance. So this doesn't make me less bullish on the altcoin market. We just haven't seen that leg up in Bitcoin where that rise in dominance isn't going to hurt us as much because we're actually getting big breaks in price to the upside. Now, let's take a look at the HBAR chart itself here. And again, you guys can see that, interestingly enough, the HBAR chart did not respond at all to the news about Proof AI migrating over to their network. So again, I'm not saying that it's a bad thing. Like I hope, as an HBAR holder, I hope that Proof AI does a fantastic job. I hope that they build massive applications. I hope that there's tons and tons of volume that comes because of this, but there's no immediate reaction, right? So the audience doesn't actually care, right? Speculators on HBAR gas tokens don't actually care about this new partnership, right? So I just want you guys to be aware of that. I think that we're probably having an overreaction in the Casper community right now because you can see how it doesn't actually affect price. By the way, guys, and I don't want to get off topic here, this is retail dumping on retail. You guys are dumping on each other. This isn't Casper Labs or anyone else dumping on you. You guys are dumping on each other because you're panicking. All right. Yeah. Beside the point, let's take a look at the chart here. Just had to get off that my chest because my God, are you guys emotional? Let's go ahead and take a look at what's happening with the HBAR chart here. So a lot of people were disappointed because they saw this big surge over here in January through March and April, like we saw with the rest of the altcoin market. And then we saw it collapse back down into the cumulative zone. Frustrating, but it's actually a positive sign because it shows that the zones that we see continued accumulation in have continuous buy demand in those zones. Market makers like that zone and they collect a lot of orders in that zone. So as we come back into these zones, we should trust that it's going to be just as sensitive again at some point in the future as it was previously when we saw the October through April breakout of last year, right? So last October through April of this year of 2024. So when we look at kind of what's been happening here and you look at left to right, technically, again, you're making higher lows. So you got the low, got the higher low, and trying to establish some sort of higher low here as well. Now, not as high of a higher low as what I would like to see, but you still have that behavior there. When we look at also just the support level that's provided enormous sensitivity here, it's going to be right between, let's just call it 4.2 cents and 4.8 cents. Incredibly sensitive zone. We had a deviation back here in January of 23, but we really haven't seen any deviations since that moment. Sensitive, 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 huge breakout, sensitive, sensitive, sensitive. Very little sell pressure at these prices here. Now, of course, right now we are range bound. So this was a nice clean break of range back here from February through May. Saw a little bit of a bounce in here, but we lost that support zone. So basically, you're stuck in a range between 4.8 and 8.7 cents. And that really hasn't changed a whole lot. This doesn't mean that the HBAR ecosystem isn't thriving, because it is. And it doesn't mean there isn't amazing developments on the network, because there are. This is just where we are in relations to altcoin liquidity rotations right now. Okay, I want you guys to be aware of that. HBAR is the same price it was on May of 2022 right now. And that does not mean that HBAR is a bad token. A lot of you guys just have a very distorted view of what is required to see the markets move in the way you want them to move. Now, we did clear out some liquidity here on HBAR, and that's one thing I will point to. And this is what we see on a lot of charts. I've pointed to so many altcoin charts where you had, the 2021 topping structure, you had a couple bounces of support, you saw capitulation, and you never saw a recovery back into that area. In April, we actually satiated that liquidity. We have retrieved some of that liquidity. Now, there's plenty of liquidity pockets higher. There's plenty of areas of interest that I like. Additionally, if we look at kind of where prices interacted as well, and I pull over to the left here, you guys can see this was also a sensitive top back in 2019 through 2020. You had a little, drawback below, and then you get this massive breakout. In fact, what's happening right now is a rebalancing of that behavior that should have happened back here in 2021. If the chart had done what it was supposed to do, breakout, back test, and then a move higher, we would have said no, that it's been filled. There's no reason to come back. But because we didn't do that, we created a distributive structure, right? Distributive structure, mark down, reaccumulation, showing that this zone is truly sensitive. You guys are getting an opportunity to buy that accumulation zone. You're buying the previous top from 2019 through 2020. So again, am I telling you guys this is financial advice? You guys need to go buy spend your entire life savings on HBAR? No, I'm just showing you guys what the chart is telling us and what the probabilities say. And we are buying resatiated zones. We're buying previous tops. We're buying accumulation zones where we know that there's been a lot of sensitivity in the past. Those are high probability setups, but high probability does not equal a guarantee. Probabilities never absolutes. Take that away. Write that down. All right, that's financial advice for you guys. Probabilities, not absolutes.
Matty, I love that. And I especially love the distinction you just threw up right there about price and that price performance. And people get so ingrained with that price performance that it becomes the end all be all. But that is a meme coin ideology. You meme coiners, you guys cannot disagree with me on this. If the meme coin is performing, the community is going to rally behind that. Right. They're going to get so energized. But look at a meme coin that isn't performing well. Where does that community go to? They go into the shadows and they no longer exist, and they become another meme coin, or they just completely disperse and forget about it altogether, and it goes to zero. So don't bring that ideology over here with price and whatever. Like, that's what makes us different than most, right, Matt? Like, we don't sit here and be like, oh, just because Casper price is heading towards half a penny that the Casper community is over. That is not our thought process here. All right, we are not in meme coin land over here. We are looking at utility, yes, and we want to see utility continuation. That's what we're going to talk about with Michael this Thursday, so I hope to see you there. But that is not us. That is not where we come from. That is not our background. We are not degens, or at least I'm not a degen. I don't know, Maddie, are you degenerate at all?
Not when it comes to investing, no.
Good. Okay. All right, team. We will see you guys Thursday. So leave your questions down below. We're not going to do the Ask Maddie show this week. I told Matt, it's just like, dude, we did like 80 minutes last week. Like, okay, let's nail this week, and then we'll be back for a great Ask Maddie show next week, answering the questions you guys have. And I think that's all we really have for today. So guys, we will see you guys on Halloween. So until then, team, bye.